Hey, it's the Tim Anderson Podcast. I'm Tim. That's my buddy Ryno. We haven't had him on the pod in a while, but hey, Ryno, good to have you here.
Good to be here. Been a while. It's been a long time, actually.
I think people thought we had a falling out or something because we just hadn't done a lot of pods in the month of January, and everybody was like, well, how could you stop in the middle of the football season? It's like, well, it wasn't the middle. It was the longest goddamn football season ever. And we got to January and just ran out of, like, you got sick and the speech season and Zach got sick and kids got sick and I wasn't feeling well. And we just couldn't get on this pod and get it going.
No, for sure. I've been sick for like 6 weeks in a row.
It's like the perfect storm.
Yeah. It really was one thing after another. Like Zach was in Vegas and you and I got busy with speech. Like you said, it was like, it piled on pretty quick.
Sure did.
Month of January became the longest goddamn month of my life.
I swear to God, January lasted 80 days. It was the longest goddamn January I think I've ever had in my life. It felt like the month that wouldn't end. Part of that was because we had normally we have like 2 speech tournaments in January, and you feel like you're just kind of getting into the flow of it. This year we had 3, damn near 4, like because the 4th tournament happened right on February 1. Yeah. Like, it just felt like the longest month in the history of the world. Now, meanwhile, February feels like it's zipping right by.
I mean, yeah, we're halfway through it. I barely noticed it. I thought it still feels like January around here.
Yeah, no kidding.
Doesn't help that it's going to get to negative butt fuck out there tonight. But
it's very cold here. And not just here. I looked at, like, Missouri, where I was thinking about taking a little road trip here for spring break. You know, Missouri today was 18 degrees in Branson.
That's shorts weather around here.
And they're getting 6 to 10 inches of snow.
Yeah, we're going to get some more too.
Of course, it's going to melt though, because see, that's the thing about living there. You'd be like, oh, it's cold here. It's 70 degrees by Friday. I mean, here we're getting excited about the fact that it's going to be 40 on Saturday.
Yeah, that bus ride's not going to be so bad, is it?
No, it's not going to be so bad. It's going to be all right.
Am I all right? My levels look a little quiet. Am I good?
You were a little quiet, but you're not too bad, actually. I've heard you much worse. I think you can get on some, your levels are hard to predict. There are weeks where you are just absolutely on the red, and then there are weeks we can't get volume out of you.
Yeah, I don't know why. That might help. I'll turn up the mic just a little bit.
There you go. Yeah, now you sound great. There you go.
It feels much better now. And I'm not trying to blow out anybody's ears. I know I'm a loud person here.
Well, it's not just you. And so we wanted to get a couple of things here tonight. First of all, you and I have a lot of off-season pods planned. We've already kicked around. We're going to do 4 draft reviews and giving our grades we started doing pods in 2020, basically because of COVID. With the impetus starting it all, the thing that started it all was the 2020 draft.
Yep.
So my thought was, let's go back and we're going to give grades now that we've had time, which is really the best way to figure out if a draft is good or not. We can't do these draft night things, but now you and I have the benefit of hindsight. We're going to go through round 1 of the 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023 drafts and figure out how they did. We're going to do a little thing we like to call hit, miss, or meh as we go through. So some drafts are going to be huge, some are going to be failures, and some picks are just going to be, they're okay. Right? Hence the meh.
Yeah.
So we got that coming up and all kinds of other stuff.
I'm all in on that. Can't wait.
Because you're a draft guy. This is all leading up to our draft pod in April, which is right around the corner. I mean, if you can believe that.
I have to confess, I've already done about 50 mock drafts.
I'm sure you have. No doubt about that. But I wanted to ask you. Go ahead.
I do love draft season. This is my game.
This is getting to that time. It's combine time for you guys coming up soon here too. So you'll be
next month
studying that. Wow, it's crazy. Well, sure enough, with all that backdrop, let's talk Trump for a night. No, I'm kidding. No, we're not going to do that tonight. Although we're on, I think, one of our 78th plane crash since he took office. I'm trying to keep track of all the different planes. Yeah. I'm trying to keep track of all that.
Tim doesn't want to talk Trump because he doesn't want to filter out the gunshot you'll get from my mic.
Yeah, it's just not something you want. You're going to be, it's just a mess. One day you and I will sit down and actually do all that politic stuff. We'll do a politics pod, but not tonight.
There's that episode of Family Guy where Peter and Quagmire go on the road as a musical duo.
Yeah.
And they come back and Peter misses the life of fame. And he said, you know what? It's okay. I just left something on the bus. And just walks up there, and all you get is the little muzzle flash and silhouette. That's all Tim's going to get if we start talking about this right now.
Yeah, we'll do a full politics pod probably when we get closer to his first 90 days or the first 100 days where we can actually look at a review of things. I'm sure by then, I'm sure we'll look at still. It'll be great.
Can't wait to see what fresh hell that brings.
Well, the first 30 days have certainly brought no shortage of news. At the very least. So you wonder what the benefit of 70 more days will bring us.
He said while taking a long drag of a cigarette.
Yes. As I have taken up smoking.
News, kids. There's plenty of news around here.
As I've taken up gummies and smoking and all kinds of stuff here. I just got a shot of Jack right in front of me here as we do this.
The old Canada, the 51st state.
I can see that breaking out right now, as a matter of fact. It'll be good.
We got ourselves to Ottawa.
So we will keep it to football tonight. We also have another great pod coming up later this week. Folks, I want you to tune into it because Allison's coming back on. And Allison and I are going to review, because the big Saturday Night Live thing was yesterday, Ryno.
I am halfway through it.
Allison and I are going to name our first ever Hall of Fame Saturday Night Live class.
Interesting.
Trying to go through all the members of SNL, and we decided to come up with our first 10. Like, who would be your first 10 entrants to the SNL Hall of Fame? You and I love a good HOF discussion.
We do love a good HOF discussion.
I think this is intense. I've already reached out to Dr. Derek Rickert. I've already reached out to a few. I've put my first 10. I sent that to you in the group chat with Zach. Am I missing anybody in that first? I mean, you can't get everybody in. Am I missing anybody in the first 10?
I think. Okay,
I won't totally.
yes,
yes, I am. Okay.
Only one. I think you're only missing one.
Okay.
And it's by nature of the old, if you change the game, you're in rule.
Yeah. See, that's the whole thing. You're right. I mean,
you got to put Gilda Radner in there.
Yeah. See,
she's got to be. I know it was short.
Believe me, we're fighting. I'm fighting this. I've already said my first 10, it's going to probably change 20 times before tomorrow.
And I hate to do this because I think he was great. I don't think Farley's catalog on SNL stands up to Gilda Radner's.
Do you think, though, that the Farley thing is really just more about cultural significance? That, like, it's kind of like Belushi in the sense that, like, Belushi didn't have like a film career because it was so short, right? He was gone by 82. You know, his time in the spotlight was really 6 years. You know, yep. It's 75 to 82. He dies early 82. Farley's kind of the same way, where it's the bulk of his career that we know is Saturday Night Live. It's not, and Tommy Boy. It's Saturday Night Live and Tommy Boy. I mean, that is really it. His career isn't that great outside of that.
You're right. I'll say, you're purely talking SNL. As far as his career, like the percentage is high for him.
You get Matt Foley. You get some of these other significant.
I'm not disparaging the workload.
Yeah,
but we're talking about Bo Jackson.
Yeah,
a very, very, very good if short-lived career. Right. It's more of a what if than a body of work versus, someone like Dan Marino, who was around for a while and changed the game as far as the ability to throw, but never won a title.
Maybe I have to go back. Yeah. I have to maybe think about Belushi and Farley maybe cancel each other out because their careers are too similar. The trajectory is too similar.
They are guys that you can't tell the story of SNL without. So eventually they have to make it in. But if we're going to talk about the first class, I don't know that I'd put them on my ballot.
Boy, to be continued on the SNL pod tomorrow, later this week with Allison, Dr. Derek wants to get in for a follow-up SNL pod. We're going to have, who knows, maybe I've started a little cottage industry here on the podcast this offseason. Maybe we'll have like a series of 5 SNL pods or something like that and really get into it. Ryno, let's talk football.
Yeah.
We could talk SNL all day, but let's talk football. I was on for a diet pod last week just to give my Super Bowl thoughts, just kind of on the game, but I wanted to give the floor to you and let you kind of take the playoffs and the Super Bowl. And now that you've had the 30,000 foot view, what do you think of it all?
Yeah, I think that, we got what the league wanted. You know what I mean? We got what the league wanted, which was the Eagles and the Chiefs part 2.
Are you suggesting that the NFL made that happen?
No, I don't think they made it happen. I think that it's one thing to say in jest that the refs helped the Chiefs win. I think it's a totally different thing when you watch the games and you see the mistakes the other teams make, right? It's fun for content to sit and say that, oh, look, here's the conspiracy. Here's what's going on. But in reality, no, Buffalo didn't do enough to beat Kansas City. And Washington was a team that's a year or two ahead of schedule, as good as they were. These two were juggernauts, and we could see Philadelphia becoming a juggernaut after the middle of the season when they sort of gelled and cleared up the problems that they had in their locker room. They just have a ton of talent, and that talent won. And Kansas City is a well-coached, if tired team that is going to have to look itself in the mirror after this year and ask what they've got to go on next year other than Patrick Mahomes. And I just think that this was always going to be it when the playoffs started, right? We all kind of toyed with other ideas. It was fun to think about. But in the back of our head, we were all like, yeah, but Philadelphia is the best team in the NFC and Kansas City's the best team in the AFC. Like this is good. This is what it was going to be, right? We didn't want it. Right?
We didn't.
It was,
although the Chiefs winning would have been, people have kind of crapped on that. That would have been, I kind of was like, but it would have been a good story. Like 3-peat, that would have been pretty impressive. That would. I
will say, it felt a bit like when you're growing up and your mom says that she's making dinner at home that night, and the entire way home from school, you're kind of just praying that she forgot to take the chicken out.
Because your mom can't cook, or what? What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? It's not the meal you want. I really just want to order pizza tonight. I want to have some fun. But when you get home, you're going to end up eating that chicken and rice that your mom made.
I'd go for that.
Look, hey, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying this game was bad.
Mine was always when my dad would make roast in the crock pot. If dad was home and he was cooking, odds are we were having a roast in the crock pot. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. How many times do we have to eat that? All right.
That's fair. So I'm when my dad cooked, it was always a big deal because my dad could cook. When mom cooked, we were having this casserole called cowboy beans.
Ooh.
Not good.
Isn't that the calico? Isn't that kind of like the calico bean? Like where you have no, it's not that.
I'm sure there is a recipe called cowboy beans that is what you're describing, but cowboy beans in my house was a can of baked beans, 3 hot dogs cut up, topped with a cornbread mix and baked for half an hour. All right. It was not good.
Yes.
All right.
I'm in.
Not good.
Not good. What's wrong with baked beans with hot dogs? I feel like that's a winner.
Listen to me. That is a side dish.
That's not dinner, is what you're saying.
That is not dinner. It is a side dish. This Super Bowl felt a bit like the cowboy beans of our options that we were given here, right? This did not feel like a fun Super Bowl to watch. Even the ads. First of all, before we get too far into the game here, the ads were awful.
Yeah.
The AI slop that these companies are putting out here to try and make us think that what they're doing is great, and hearkening back to 15-year-old ads. And
every year I'm tired of, first of all, peace and Jesus loves you. And how much, listen, stop with that nonsense. Just make me laugh for the Super Bowl, please. You've run these Unity ads out for the last how many years? They don't fucking work. Stop. Don't do them anymore. I want to perk me up a little bit. I already know it sucks. I already know that.
hey, the person cheering for the other team is your neighbor. The person who voted different than you is your neighbor. Yeah, you know what? I don't like them very much right now.
And I'm not a big fan of my neighbors. Yeah, I don't even like them.
Yeah. No,
Screw them.
Those he gets us memes are something else.
It's the same. It's the same neighbor that's running that goddamn electric, that motorized bike all through my neighborhood at all hours of the goddamn night. I don't like that guy. You kidding me? I want to run that guy. I want to clothesline him off that thing.
That guy was standing out on his lawn. He's screaming at his wife at 3 a.m. last year. I don't want anything to do with him. I'd like it if he moved.
Yes, I want new neighbors immediately.
That's my trade for Jesus. I'll respect my neighbors if you get me some new damn neighbors.
I promise I'll attempt to like whoever the next neighbor is. I promise.
As long as my garage doesn't smell like Marlboro Reds every single time I open it.
I'm not asking for the world here, for God's sake. I mean, anyway. But yes, I'm with you. I don't need the ads were not good. And they were paying $8 million for those. I'm like, oh, Jesus, somebody's got to get their money back.
Not even get your money back. Can we talk about how these companies are just lighting their marketing budgets on fire?
Yes.
Like, hire me. I'll do better than that.
No kidding.
I'll get you better than that. And you know what? People will buy it. People will watch it because I'll give you something good. Because what you're putting out right now, it ain't up to snuff. It's like we'll tell our speech kids, right? It doesn't happen to the great ones. And right now, you ain't great.
Yep.
That's trash.
That's the whole thing. I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of how many shitty breadsticks, how many crappy breadsticks Eugene Levy choked down from Little Caesars just to get that ad out there. It's like, oh, Jesus, poor Eugene Levy.
Hey, you know what? Those breadsticks are actually pretty good.
See that hard up for $1?
I'll stand by that. The Little Caesars breadsticks are pretty good. Not an ad. Anyway, back to the game.
No free ads. No free ads.
Yeah. Back to the game. I would like to have seen the Bills and the Eagles. I think that would have been more fun. But the problems for the Bills that we thought would be problems for the Bills kind of cropped up, right? Yeah. Just not able to close a game. Just small mistakes here and there. Josh Allen can't overcome it despite being Superman, right? That was the knock on them all year. It was what we talked about in our ranking segment all year long, and it turned out to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Good team, not a great team. And I mean, it's unfortunate that we had to witness a Super Bowl blowout because I really don't like those. I don't think they're very fun to watch when the big game is a blowout.
Yeah, it always kind of ends the season on kind of a negative, like, now we got to wait 7 months.
But it did feel like an era-ending blowout, which I guess kind of leads to our first burning question.
Yes, let's go to it. Me and you have come up with 5 burning questions for the NFL offseason. And
did you like that segue, by the way?
God, that was so smooth. You're getting so good at this radio stuff, Ryno. It's really incredible. I can't wait for SiriusXM to call. I don't know why they haven't already. And said, why can't Anderson and Nelson Kane just run the afternoon drive time? And that would be I would do it in a minute if they want.
Yeah.
Burning question number 1. Is it over for Kansas City?
I think as long as they've got Reed and Mahomes, it can't be over. But boy, they have some questions they got to address, right? I mean, I thought defensively early they looked great. That the defense is absolutely up to billing. I don't think Steve Spagnuolo deserves the heat that he got for the end of that game. You could have had a defensive coaching staff that consisted of Steve Spagnuolo and Buddy Ryan and anyone else out there, right? That you want to put on that staff that could have been a Hall of Famer. When your defense is on the field that much in the second half of a game, I don't care if it's an all-star team, you're going to lose. Because they can't, in the NFL, you can't play that long without getting exhausted. Your offense eventually has to do something. So for me, I mean, I know it's not a glamorous answer to point the finger at the offense who, everybody was, already saying, well, yeah, we know they didn't do good, but the defense second half, the second half of the defense we can kind of throw away because they weren't at their best. They couldn't be. They burned everything in the first half. They had no help from their offense. It's a whole team game. So do I think it's over? No, I don't think it's over. But I think offensively, you have to begin to ask the questions that Green Bay was asking a few years ago of, do we have weapons that our quarterback can use? Travis Kelce looked his age over the course of these playoffs. He did not look like the guy that has been there the last 10 years.
And I think everybody talked up Xavier Worthy like he was going to be a superstar, and he might still be, because it's too early to kind of throw in the towel on that. And he had flashes of brilliance, but I thought I think he's a long way away from being a legitimate number one guy. I don't think he's that at all.
He, to me, feels more like a Jameson Williams, a one or two play gadget player that can break the game open for you in a couple of spots, but he's not a guy you rely on. Right? I think the bigger issue is like DeAndre Hopkins dropping balls he shouldn't drop.
Yeah, get him out of there.
He looks old.
And they're going to get Rashee Rice back next year because that's the comeback. They'll say, well, hey, dude, we didn't have Pacheco for the whole year. Give me a healthy Pacheco. Bring me back Rashee Rice. We'll figure out the offensive line through the draft and free agency and we'll be okay. Is it that simple?
Look, it might be for them. They're not exactly short on picks, right? They haven't given up a bunch of capital to assemble the team that they've assembled. And I don't think they're one or two pieces away, right? They're clearly there. They are talented enough right now to get to the Super Bowl. But the Eagles are the most talented team that we've seen in the Super Bowl since I think the Brady Bucks were there.
Yeah.
Right? That there's more names on that Eagles roster than we've seen in a long time. And I think it's fair to say that they were just better than the Chiefs. They were just better. You have an all-world running back. You've got a quarterback who was playing out of his mind that entire game. You've got two elite wide receivers. You've got the best offensive line in football, and that's just on one side of the ball. And they could beat you up on defense too. Their kicker is nails. Their special teams will pin you deep. They do everything right. They don't make a ton of mistakes. That's Philadelphia. Great. Good for them. I don't know how long that lasts for them. They could be back again here next year, and we're going to see dueling dynasties for a couple of years because I think Kansas City will be back too, right? I think they're young enough. The guys they've got under rookie contracts are good, and they're going to retool that offensive line.
See, I don't think it's going to be that simple, though, because now you start to look in that division, and it's gone are the days of Nathaniel Hackett, Brandon Staley, and Antonio Pierce and all that. That is the best crop of head coaches division in football, and it's not close, right? When you go Reed, Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, those are not walks in the park. Every game's going to be a battle. Every single game.
Every single one of those guys has been in or won a Super Bowl.
Correct.
Which is good.
Or a college national title.
Well, no, Harbaugh was in the Super Bowl. Is what I'm saying.
That's true. Yep.
2012, he was there.
Yep.
So they know what it takes to get there. They know how to build it. It's just a matter. And let's not forget, too, that Harbaugh, even though he only went to one, I mean, those teams were great. And they were in the NFC title game.
That. He's won everywhere he's gone. Everywhere he's gone, he's won.
And they all have quarterbacks, with the exception of Vegas right now, right? Denver's got their guy. LA's got their guy. Kansas City's got their guy. Everybody's got their guy. So it comes down to the margins, and I still think I trust Kansas City. Defensively, they're just better than the other three teams.
But I think gone are the days of winning 15 games, though. Because that division, they're not winning. They're not just going to steamroll that division.
Although statistically, since 1987, you could say that that's a bad thing to win 15 games because 8 teams have done it and none of them have won the Super Bowl.
No, you're absolutely. I think, and there's something to that, right? When you're living on a razor's edge every game like they were doing, like you just eventually you can't do that, right? Mentally.
Look, you flip a coin 15, 16 times, you're going to lose a couple times, right? You have to be able to pull away, and they just weren't able to pull away. And there was always this feeling of, well, they could come back. And every time it felt like they had a chance to maybe, put the foot on the gas and start to mount a comeback, somebody would make a mistake. A guy drops the ball. A guy misses a block. A guy loses the ball. A guy, a tackle is missed. You know what I mean? They just weren't clean. And sometimes you're going to have a game like that. And that was theirs. It just happened to be on national television on the biggest stage in the world.
So we'll keep an eye on, is Kelce done? Is that it for Travis Kelce?
He might come back another year, but I think everyone, including you and me, have talked about this, that he just doesn't look right. He doesn't look like himself. He looks like he's
a 30 some year old guy that, has got the world by the balls, and he's got more money than he knows what to do with, and smoking hot girlfriend who's famous as hell. And
how many years do we have to say Father Time is undefeated?
100%.
And you can dread it You can run from it. Age comes for us all. And it's here, man. It's here for Travis Kelce. His brother has not played for a year. He's been out, right? Like they're done. The era is ending, and he doesn't look right anymore. So I think he might be done. And that's another question for Kansas City, is who takes that role.
It's a great question.
Noah Gray looks pretty good, but he's not Travis Kelce.
Well, there's very few who are, and that's where it's kind of unfair. But I can't wait to see what happens from there. We'll keep an eye on that one. Burning question number 2. I moved my other burning question down, so I'll ask this one next. Is Jalen Hurts legit, or are there still questions? Is it time to give Jalen Hurts his flowers? That's burning question number 2.
I think I still have questions about his consistency. He was great in the playoffs.
Had a great. Really was really darn good in the Super Bowl. Made tons of big plays.
Amazing play in the Super Bowl, right? Absolutely earned that MVP. But there are times when he is playing quarterback that he will lose the game for Philadelphia. And I think that until that little tick in his game is gone, I can't put him there yet. I can't say that the questions are answered. I can't put him in the Mahomes tier, the Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen tier. He's still one step below. Congratulations on earning a Super Bowl. Absolutely earned it. Can't take it away from him. There's nothing wrong with what he did.
And there's got to be some guys that he now moves ahead of, right? Like you would take him over Dak, Jordan Love.
Yep.
You would take him over, Vikings quarterback du jour. You would take him over Justin Herbert. You would take him over a lot of dudes.
Aaron Rodgers,
you name it. A lot of dudes. Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, you name it.
There's those top 4 guys, right? There's the going into the season, there were top 4 guys. There's obviously Mahomes, there's Jackson, there's Allen, and then he's kind of 4 right now, right? He and Joe Burrow, I think, are kind of those 2 guys, right? That they still have some questions. One of them's got a title, one of them doesn't. But I think Burrow, if he were on a better team with a better defense, that he could win them some games, but he's kind of had to do everything, right? It's a more extreme case of the Josh Allen thing where, like, I think that maybe he's better than some of the guys he's on this list with, but until he wins a title, he won't be considered among the best. But he can carry a team. And if you are a force amplifier, right? If everybody around you gets better because of you, you're a guy I think that's on that list. So Jalen Hurts is there, obviously, because everybody got better around him in the Super Bowl, right? On the biggest stage, he was able to clutch up and make everybody better. Same thing with Joe Burrow. He does the same thing. I don't think Jamar Chase is as good with another quarterback as he is with Burrow. I don't think T. Higgins, if he were to leave Cincinnati tomorrow, I don't think T. Higgins could go to another team and do the same kind of production that he has in Cincinnati because of his quarterback play. So those 2 guys, I think, are kind of that second tier of quarterback right now, and I would put everybody else below them.
I think that's fair. I think that's very fair. And we'll have to keep an eye on. I'm with you on Hurts to this extent, right? I think he has definitely earned some respect, and I think we have to take stock in the fact that guy's a legitimate big time quarterback. But I still think, what would happen if there was no Saquon Barkley? What happens if AJ Brown is hurt? It's the same questions we had about Brock Purdy that kind of answered themselves this year, didn't they? Where all of a sudden it was like, man, you take some of these big stars out of the lineup and Purdy's not able to win the game by himself. I still think Hurts is that. I can't say Hurts can win the game by himself. Mahomes, I think, can win the game by himself. I think Allen can win a game by himself. Lamar can win a game by himself. You're right. Burrow can win a game by himself. I don't know if Hurts is in that camp just yet. I agree with you on that.
There were some throws in the Super Bowl that he made that I thought, ew, where are you? That was like clean pocket, didn't get hit. Like it was just off. And you go, I don't think great quarterbacks miss that ball.
But as long as the tush push is a play, He has to be like one of the 2 or 3 fantasy QBs off the board now going forward, doesn't he?
For sure. I do think that I could give you an oratory right now about why I think fantasy evaluation should be different from your evaluation as a player.
I agree with that.
And I think that absolutely Jalen Hurts falls into that, he is, I think that he has a similar type of tier but he's more valuable in fantasy than I think he is in the game right now.
I think that's fair.
But the pick that he threw right before halftime, the 2 of the balls that were underthrown to AJ Brown that he could have gotten and would have walked into the end zone. Like, this game should have been more of a blowout than it was because of those things. I just think, like, even though the pressure's off, even though you don't have guys in your face, even though you're not, you're standing behind this elite offensive line, you're still missing those throws. It makes me wonder, if this game is closer, how much was he feeling that pressure?
I think that's fair.
I just don't see the consistency that you want to see out of a guy that I would say is in the upper echelon of quarterback play, in the top tier.
Next 5 years going forward, do you want him or Jaden Daniels?
Jaden Daniels.
I think that's how you can evaluate Hurts going forward. Just start asking guys, who would you rather have in the next 5 years?
Because I think Jaden Daniels absolutely played his ass off as a rookie, and I reserve the right to change that opinion if he has a sophomore slump next year and the trajectory changes. But this year, teams had tape on him. They could see what his game was, and he fixed things that were problems in college.
He got better as the season went on, too, because he started hot, had that middle kind of lull, and then it was almost like he got a second wind, or he made an adjustment and got better again.
He has the quality that you want out of a quarterback that we don't talk about often, but everybody knows it, which is when the shit is about to hit the fan, look at him on the sideline and who's the calmest guy on the sideline. And if it's not him, you've got a problem. Right? Go down the list. If you're down 13 points with 6 minutes to go, right? Who do you want? You want Patrick Mahomes. You want Josh Allen. You want Lamar Jackson. You want Jalen Hurts. You want Joe Burrow, right? These guys who are ice cold when the game is hot, that you can trust not to make an emotional decision, not to feel the pressure, to simply execute what you want them to execute in the way you want them to execute it. Jaden Daniels has it. He's got that. He is a cool operator, and an operator can quickly become an assassin in games like that. And I think that's the quality you look for, and he's got it, and it's uncoachable.
It's going to be interesting to watch him next year, because this will lead us to burning question number 3. Nick Sirianni's back in kind of a similar spot that he was in a couple years ago, where now he has to replace an offensive mind. So that brings us to burning question number 3. Of all of the new coach hires that have been made, who is the most intriguing to you, Ryan?
Oh, now I've got to remember all the coaches that were hired. Give me 1 second to find the list. That's last year's list. That's not what I'm looking for.
Mike Vrabel's, I'll tell you, I can run them through for you. Mike Vrabel's in New England.
Okay.
Aaron Glenn is in New York with the Jets. Kellen Moore just got named for the Saints. Liam Cohen's in Jacksonville. Pete Carroll's in Las Vegas. Who am I missing? Oh, Brian Callahan is or Brian Schottenheimer is in Dallas, and Ben Johnson is in Chicago.
Yeah, I think we can knock a few off my list. Just my list.
Right? As in, they're not intriguing at all to you.
Intriguing, but not something that I believe is going to be successful.
Okay.
I don't love the Pete Carroll hire. I think that as far as retreads, he's an older coach. Don't love it. I think you could have been a little bit more out of the box with that one. But again, you went out of the box with the last one. So
see, I don't hate that hire, because he's an adult. He's a grown-up, and he's like a real coach with bona fides, which, they didn't have there in a while. Haven't had there really. I mean, Gruden was a bona fide coach, but like Pete Carroll's bona fide in the sense that he's actually like done this, been there, done that.
I don't love the Aaron Glenn hire.
Really? Interesting.
Not because of him, but because of the situation. I hate the Jets. I think the Jets are a cancerous organization that is run by an incompetent moron.
And his incompetent sons.
and his incompetent sons. And I don't like that. I feel like Aaron Glenn is going to be the sacrificial lamb as a good coach in an organization that doesn't deserve him. I think Robert Saleh deserved better. I think that the organization kind of put the screws to him a little bit, and I wouldn't be surprised that they did it to Aaron Glenn. I hate the Brian Schottenheimer hire, so that won't be on my list.
See, I don't hate it. I just don't think it's an upgrade.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's better or I don't know if it's worse because I've never seen Brian Schottenheimer be a head coach. So I can't say with any accuracy that he's worse than Mike McCarthy, but I can't say that he's better. There's nothing about that hire that makes me go, oh, he's demonstratively more creative than the previous guy. I just feel like they hired kind of the same guy.
Yeah, and I don't love that. I think that if you're the Dallas Cowboys, no one should be able to go get a coach that you want to get and beat you to him, right? So to have other guys that I think were bigger names that would have been more splashy hires, I just wonder if Jerry's lost his touch a little bit, lost his nerve.
This is always Jerry, though. Jerry's always done this because post Jimmy Johnson, with the exception of Parcells, he has never hired a big name guy. Chan Gailey, Dave Campo, Jason Garrett, Wade Phillips.
Yeah, you're right.
He doesn't want guys that are bigger than him. He doesn't want to share the wealth.
And I think if you want to know why you haven't won or been to the title game in 30 years, that's why.
Because who was banging down the door to get Chan Gailey?
No one.
Who was banging down the door to get Dave Campo?
Who's banging down the door to get Brian Schottenheimer?
Nobody. And it's no disrespect to Brian Schottenheimer. He's a professional football coach.
No, but if they wanted to hire him, they would have hired him last year.
Sure. I agree. He was out there forever.
They had a better season last year than they did this past year.
100%.
I don't understand it. I think Dallas makes a mistake. Here's who I'm most excited by. I love the Kellen Moore hire. I love Kellen Moore.
He's definitely striking while the iron's hot, isn't he? I mean, he is.
I have liked Kellen Moore for years. I thought he should have been a head coach 2 years ago.
Got a raw deal at the end of Dallas. Ended up having to go to LA where Staley was there, and it was like, oh Jesus.
Yep,
that ain't gonna work.
I think that they. I think that he does a good job of calling a creative offense without sacrificing position for the team. I think he does what Ben Johnson does, quieter, and without the kind of bravado that you kind of see out of Detroit. I don't think you get that out of Kellen Moore. I think that he was a fine college quarterback who was an underdog, and he'll continue to be an underdog, and he'll bring that mentality and that culture to New Orleans, where he's going to do great. I think he needs a quarterback. And I'll be interested to see what their plan is there because they'll have Derek Carr under kind of a shitty contract the next year. So I kind of consider this year zero for him where they're going to have to ride it out with the old regime's guys before the money clears up. But would I be surprised if maybe Derek Carr gets dealt and deal happens where someone like, I don't know,
Justin Fields,
is Sam Darnold ends up in New Orleans? No.
See, there are some intriguing guys out there that are going to be able, like you could get for a relatively decent price if you can make the right trade, which we can talk about in a little bit later. But yeah, I like Kellen Moore. I like the fact that he showed up in Philly, had his system, immediately looked at the roster and said, I'm changing my system to fit. Because guys don't do that, right? A lot of guys are just so married to their stuff and they don't want to change. And he went from being a passing coordinator to a running coordinator because he looked at his roster and he said, I got this guy and this guy and this guy. We're going to run because that's what we do. And I've
said this on this podcast for years that the best coaches are adaptable. Right. Sean Payton is I hate the guy, but he's adaptable. Jim Harbaugh wins with anybody. Pete Carroll wins with anybody.
Yeah, he went to the playoffs with Geno Smith.
Right. There are the best coaches in this league, in college, in high school, at any level, are the coaches who look at their personnel and say, what do I get to run this year?
Right. And it's nice to be grounded in your philosophies, and it's nice to be grounded in your systems and the things that you like to do. But you have to be willing to add a wrinkle, to change something. And I thought Kellen Moore showed that this year.
Absolutely did. So he's my number one. I think I'm super intrigued by that hire. Number two, I mean, is it too basic to say Mike Vrabel?
See, Vrabel's interesting to me because I actually think Vrabel is the guy they wanted all along. But for some reason, Kraft felt like he had to give the job to Gerard Mayo last year. Meanwhile, it was like, no, like you overthought this. Like, go hire the guy you want. Gerard Mayo wasn't ready to be a head coach in this league. And maybe Gerard Mayo will land on his feet. He'll be a defensive coordinator somewhere. He'll be very good at it. And he might get another shot down the road. But you could just tell early, and I'm a Patriots guy, wasn't ready for prime time. Like he didn't have the way, he couldn't handle the media properly. He didn't handle his roster properly. He said too many really stupid things that just don't put confidence in fan bases. And you can't have that.
Yeah. And you do feel like with Belichick guys, especially, right? Like the direct Belichick guys.
Yep.
That you just get the feeling that they're not super well trained on the stuff outside of X's and O's. That Belichick did such a good job of assembling experts, right? But to be a head coach, you can't be the undersecretary. You got to be the president, right? You gotta kind of know how to politics this thing a little bit, and you got to kind of know how to manage men, not just a rotation, and not just hold a room together and coach guys up, right? The job as a head coach is so much more immersive, especially on a professional football organization. That while you have a boss as a GM, I know Belichick never did, but when you have a boss as a GM, like you got to manage upwards and downwards, right? You got to be communicating to your boss, like to the GM, like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what we need. Here's who we got, and here's what we can get rid of. And you got to look at the guys on the team and say, hey, XYZ isn't good enough, but I'm not going to say that publicly unless you get it fixed, right? Like I want you to get it fixed so I can recognize it. I want to manage this. Like Kevin O'Connell does a great job of that in Minnesota. I think Matt LaFleur has done a great job of that in Green Bay. Dan Campbell has done a great job of that in Detroit, right? These guys that the only thing they say publicly about their team is positive.
Right.
Right. And behind the scenes, they know their guys and they know how to manage their guys, and they are professional. I didn't get professional from Gerard Mayo. I got a guy who just kind of wants to coach football. That's not good enough in the NFL.
You can't act like Belichick without Belichick's resume. And this is what gets guys like McDaniels, what got guys like Charlie Weiss, what gets guys like this into trouble is that they walk around with the rings thinking that but you're not Bill Belichick. Like Belichick gets to do that. He's got the rings. You don't have those. Like you're the coordinator, sure, but you didn't coach. You're not the head coach for those. Right. Head coaches have to earn that. You have to earn the ability to be Bill Belichick and be flippant in press conferences. Yeah. They haven't earned that.
Well, and I don't even think Belichick was flippant, right? He told the press what they needed to know, and if they asked about a game, he would tell them, right? There were multiple times that Belichick would start waxing poetic about something in football history because he loves the game.
Yeah.
Right?
That is true. That's kind of the underrated part of him that nobody really talks about. That's why I knew he'd be good on TV, because I think he loves talking football with people.
He just knows ball and he loves it. It's his whole life. Great. I want to listen to a guy like that. I listen to Gerard Mayo. I listen to Josh McDaniels. I listen to Charlie Weiss. These guys are just assholes who coach football. I know those guys are a dime a dozen in that business. Right? I could throw a rock into a pile of coaches and hit some asshole who thinks he knows ball. Right? I'm one of them. I'm willing to admit that. I'm a decent coach. I know how to coach a position. I'm not Bill Belichick. I would never confuse myself like that, right? The ego is there. The production is not.
Correct. It is the absolute woke up on third, thought we hit a triple philosophy.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Some guys grow into it, some guys don't.
Duval. How interested are you in Liam Cohen?
I'm not. The guy's a clown. How could you do that to another organization and think guys are going to want to work with you?
Do you think, though, that it's going to be one of those? Isn't that water under the bridge in a year or two? Like, what if they go 7-9? Does anybody care about that?
I think that Tampa will care forever.
Oh, God. Yeah. They will.
I think everyone connected to that organization will care forever. And
he better hope it works in Jacksonville. There may not be as many open games.
That's what I'm saying, right? Is other people take other jobs in other organizations all the time. And now you have poisoned the well with one organization over the course of 1 year.
See, at least Josh McDaniels knew he could always go back to New England.
Right. And if it doesn't go well for you in Jacksonville, which, let's be honest, doesn't go well for everybody in Jacksonville. In fact,
seems like really good. Like Peterson was a decent coach, got ran right out of there. So I don't know.
Jack Del Rio was a good coach. He was there for years. Out. Right? Like this it don't work for people in Jacksonville because it's a bad organization. Players don't want to play there. That's not, if it don't go well for him, might be the last chance he gets. So you kind of,
there's a lot of nameless, kind of faceless guys coaching in the NFL right now that you're like, I feel like it's like the average white guy league right now. We're like Brian Callahan and Dave Canales and Liam Cohen and Brian Schottenheimer. And you're just like, I feel like they're all the same guy. They have the same names. You just feel like they have the same face.
Yep.
Although I think Canales actually can coach a little bit. Like, I'm not ruling Dave Canales out as a good coach in this league. I thought his team actually, if you really look at game 1 to game 17, who improved the most? Carolina might have improved the most. He might have got more out of his team than anybody else this year. But still, doesn't it just feel like they're the same guys? Like Zach Taylor, they're all the same. Everybody's the same. It's the most homogenous league you've ever seen in your life. Anyway.
Yeah, outside of a handful of maybe 7 or 8 coaches in the league that you're like, I know that guy. That guy's good.
Yep.
There's a steep drop.
There could be 10 guys fired next year. Think about that. Like if you go at your early hot seat, you'd go Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen, Kevin Stefanski, all these guys. Like Stefanski's a decent coach, but like clearly on the hot seat heading in, right?
Yep.
Clearly. I think Taylor has to be at least a little bit warm. That seat's got to be a little warm for Zach Taylor.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it has to be a little. McDermott maybe a little bit. At least McDermott's won something in this. I mean, at least he's
I'm just saying, like, teams that are that good and invest that much will sometimes say, like, "Hey, we have not gotten over the hump in X amount of years. Like, this is your last shot."
Somebody's got to eat it. Yeah, right. Somebody just has to.
I mean, now you've got, like you said, Canales. You've got
Callahan's in year 2. We'll see what happens for him there in Tennessee.
Mike McDaniel in Miami.
Yeah, McDaniels. Yeah, Spicoli. Boy, the blooms off that rose. I mean, Raheem Morris, I mean, that was pretty disappointing in Atlanta. You know, who knows what will happen to him? I'm just saying, it's very possible like 8 to 10 jobs could be open next year because there's so many dudes who can't coach.
We're not even talking about retirements, right? Like,
yeah, Reed.
How many years does Pete Carroll have? Andy Reid? Like, there are guys all over this league. McVay has been rumored to retire for years. How many?
He's 30. I mean, he's not going to retire forever, though. If he steps out, he's going to step out for a little bit.
For sure. But we'll be talking about a job opening. You know what I mean? And there will be openings you don't expect.
Oh, always.
You know, if hypothetically, if one of these major college jobs open and you have kind of a mid-level NFL guy and they look around and say, hey, we hired an NIL GM to handle all the NIL recruiting and negotiations. You just get to coach football and run the program. There's a lot of guys that would jump at that and say, it's basically the same gig and I don't have to deal with professionals. I get to set the rules. I'm all in.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why Belichick's in North Carolina.
Yep.
I mean,
there's something to be said
for that.
That opens the door for this.
You're right. So, I mean, Gruden's talking about getting back in, which is mind-boggling to me. But there he is.
He's so good on Barstool, though. His bits are so good.
Can't get enough. So let's keep an eye on the coaching thing. 2 more burning questions.
Yeah.
Number 4. Is there a home for Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, Zach thinks Pittsburgh.
I think that makes sense. Don't you think? Pittsburgh makes sense.
I got 2. outside of Pittsburgh.
I think we all can agree Pittsburgh feels like a logical candidate.
Yep.
Tomlin is not a rebuilding coach. He's a win now guy. They've got some win now pieces. They need to go.
Let me lay out my criteria here, because I think there are two types of teams that would want him.
Yep.
And then there's some stipulations that would create overlap and would winnow the field. One, I think for him, team needs to be able to win now.
100%. No reason to go to anywhere else. You got to go to a place that's going to win.
So that eliminates half the league, right? Gone. It has to be somewhere that is going to allow him to throw the ball frequently. He's not going to be a 2015 Peyton Manning.
Yep.
Right? They're not going to be a run-first offense. He wants to throw the ball.
Needs an offensive-minded head coach.
Yep, that's number 3. Somebody who understands the ball, somebody who can work with him, somebody who's not going to stand in his way, and somebody who isn't a hard ass, right? So again, rule out a handful of teams here. I honestly wonder if the head coach might be the reason he doesn't go to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, because Arthur Smith doesn't excite you either, right? To work under him. I mean, does that get you excited?
Right. On the team side, one, I think a lot of teams are going to demand the same kind of thing that he got from that the Jets demanded. I think that they're going to demand an end to the media stuff. They're going to demand an end to the distractions.
Stay off Pat McAfee.
Yep. It's until you can have that when you retire. We need one good year out of you. Right. And because I think he's looking for that. I think he's looking for 1 year. I need one more run, right? With an actual run, with an actual team. What can I do? Right?
He's going to look for like what Tom did, right? Like he's trying to find that Tampa Bay with the offensive coach and wide receiver weapons that you're like, okay, that makes, because when Tom went to Tampa, everybody went weird, but then everybody was like, well, Chris Godwin's pretty good and Mike Evans is pretty good and Bruce Arians can coach offensive ball. That makes sense.
Yep.
So all of a sudden it started to make sense.
Yes. I think wherever you go, Devontae Adams is going to want to follow. So you got to have some cap space.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I think that he'll take a lesser deal if he can get everything he wants. Right? So I think he'll be willing to concede the McAfee stuff if he can just take one more year and run, which leaves me with 2 teams.
I'm listening.
1, the New Orleans Saints.
Chris Olave, offensive coach.
Good weapons. He would be the guy, right? No backup pushing him from behind. The other team is the Minnesota Vikings.
I was going to say Minnesota's on my list. The prophecy, because the prophecy makes sense, doesn't it?
Cap space, offensive head coach, elite weapons, a running back he knows. And if it's 1 year for McCarthy to sit and learn one more time, I think they do it.
The worlds are lining up that way, because I thought about this. I'm like, it's too, not just the whole Jets thing, but the fact that, like, remember, we went to the playoffs with T-Jack the year prior.
Yep.
With Chili, right? And everybody was like, well, do we keep building around T-Jack and keep letting him be the guy? And they were kind of like, but we could get Favre, and Favre knows the offense. And
it's also,
makes sense.
There's also that question of, what else do you do in the offseason, right? We don't exactly have a Steve Hutchinson on the inside, and Rodgers isn't exactly mobile, right? So I will say that guys year 2 coming off of Achilles are much better than year 1, statistically speaking.
That's true.
And you have this kind of potential wrinkle as far as compensation goes. Justin Jefferson's on Instagram trying to recruit Myles Garrett to the Vikings. Now, I don't want to say that's going to happen, because I don't think Minnesota has the capital to make a move like that. But that's
you'd have to surrender a good chunk. You'd have to upper part of your draft for sure,
and probably next year's upper part of next year's draft for a player like that. But he does instantly give you a Hall of Famer on your defensive line.
There's no question. But you couldn't go get Rodgers at that point, because that's the cap,
right?
Even though he's our free agent, right? Like, you could sign him.
Yeah, unless he's willing to take a very small deal.
Yep.
Right. Basically a vet minimum, and come play here for just one run it back year. Can you sling it to, if he can't make it work with Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison, he ain't going to make it work anyway.
That's correct.
Although you could kind of say the same with Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson.
Could he make it work in San Francisco? Because I was going to throw that at you. San Francisco.
See,
You're going to get Ayuk back healthy. You're going to get McCaffrey back healthy. You have Shanahan. He's a West Coast guy. Like, he's from California. That's his town. That's his jam. Smoke all the pot you want. You know, like, it is. I mean, granted, it's pretty liberal out there for him. I don't know if he could handle that, but if you could bring back Debo and Ayuk and Kittle and McCaffrey and you bring Salah on the defense, unless that's the wrinkle.
Debo wants the trade, right?
I think so. Or does he hate Salah that much that he couldn't go back now with him on the defense as the defensive coordinator? That's interesting.
I mean, look, if he ended up on the same roster as Robert Saleh after basically being the reason that Salah got fired, I don't know that that's the kind of thing that San Francisco would want in the building.
But I think that was something that made sense to me, because what if you don't love Purdy?
Yep.
And you want to
I see the vision.
Yeah.
I see the vision. I just think that the issue with the former head coach,
because didn't he want Tom? Shanahan wanted Tom.
Yeah,
he wanted 46-year-old Tom. So why wouldn't he want 41-year-old Rodgers?
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I see what you're getting at. I just think that the Salah thing precludes it.
You might be right.
So let's look.
Yeah, the Vikings thing is interesting.
I would hate it. I would hate every second of that.
You'd buy a jersey though, wouldn't you?
No. No. First of all, the only reason I have a TJ Hawkinson jersey is because people say I look like TJ Hawkinson.
You do kind of look like him, yes. We've talked about that.
I've made the joke to our speech kids that I look like TJ Hawkinson if TJ Hawkinson ate TJ Hawkinson.
I was just
I look like somebody stuck an air tube in his butt and let it inflate for about a day. That I look like the jolly pudgy TJ. I look like TJ Hawkinson 3 years out of retirement. All right. That's
when he's calling football games for CBS or something like that.
That ruddy face in the Green Bay cold, the round cheeks with the redness on the cheeks and the nose, like, hey, welcome to Green Bay. Like that's me, TJ Hawkinson, like years after his retirement.
Welcome to Green Bay, Noah Eagle and TJ Hawkinson here.
That's right.
Ready for this big game.
When he's got that nice crisp haircut to be on TV, like that's.
Oh yeah, he'll shed the big locks and.
Yeah, I'm never doing that. So I will always look like if TJ Hawkinson was playing football at about 100 pounds heavier than he is now. But that's the only reason I have his jersey. And I would not buy a Rodgers jersey. I'd buy a McCarthy jersey before I buy a Rodgers jersey.
Fair enough. How about number 5? Ready? Last burning question.
What do you got?
What do we talk about this year? What did we talk about this year that we don't want to talk about next year? What did we talk about this year that we don't want to talk about next year? So like, okay, this is going to be our last time to talk about this. Let's get this all out of our system now, because we don't want to talk about this in 7 months.
Boy, that's tough.
Taylor Swift's out. We've agreed on that already. Like, we're not going to talk about Taylor Swift unless it's her music.
Yeah. What don't we want to talk about next year, Tim?
Well, first of all, I don't want to talk about referees. I really don't want to talk about referees.
Right.
Because, I mean, well, here's the problem. It wasn't just our pod, because when we do it, it's cheeky and fun, right?
Right.
But it's too much a part of the real narrative of football now. Like, I need that to stop. Like, we just have got to get a handle on that. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like, I said this last week on the Diet Pod. I'll say it again. I don't need Mike Pereira. I don't need Gene Steratore. I don't need Terry McCauley or any of these guys. I don't need these guys. Dean Blandino. Just stop. Stop. I don't need 100 replays of it, and I don't need them giving me their 2 cents. Like, we can do without them. I'm good without it. So I vote we don't talk about that.
Here's my vote. And this is going to sound weird coming from me. I don't want to talk about gambling anymore. I think I have
let's gamble, but let's not talk about it anymore.
Yeah, I have soured so much on the gambling advertisements and the constant infusion of gambling in the game.
Because it's literally everywhere now. It's everywhere.
I think I'm done with it. I'm open to guys playing games like that if they want to gamble. Fine. I have no issue with gambling. Right? You want to do what you want to do with your money, do it.
I don't want the
Right.
broadcast in the league to be actively talking about it.
Yep. I don't like the feeling that the league is in bed with gambling, because I think that fuels your problem. I think it makes the referee issue appear larger than perhaps it is, and it makes it worse if it's not just an appearance. I think that the
'Cause
amount
you're
of
kind of
money
one gambling scandal away from everything
brother,
completely falling apart.
Tim Donaghy destroyed the NBA for a long time.
Right.
And it never got away, because now the constant talk is that the NBA is rigged. And anybody who wants to can point to Donaghy and say, "Hey man, it's happened." I don't want to say that can happen in football, because I don't know that I believe it could.
But we're already seeing the
Right.
players. Like we saw the NBA player last year who now has a lifetime ban because like he was taking money. Like he was betting, insider betting. And you're hearing about Jameson Williams, and you hear about all this other stuff that's out there. There's too much crap out. The Julio Jones thing is still weird to me.
Yeah.
There was so much about that feels like it was like a gambling shakedown. Nobody talks about it, but it's out there.
Yeah. So I would like to spend 2025, 2026 with the league and all of us being more quiet about our gambling.
I can get down with this. I think this is a great idea.
And I have nothing against gamblers, right? We got gamblers in this pod. I gamble, you gamble, Zach gambles all the time, right? No problem with it.
Yeah, gamble all you want. I want legal gambling here in the state of Minnesota. I want it.
Do what you want with your money. You work 40 hours a week. You work your ass off, right? You want a beer at the end of the week. You want to throw $10 down on whether or not someone's going to go over 25 on an NBA game on Prize Picks or whatever. Do your thing, man. I don't care, right? Do your thing. But stop putting it in games. Every other advertisement is an ad for Caesars or FanDuel or DraftKings or Prize Picks or Underdog or whatever.
Bet Rivers and goddamn everything.
And it's only a matter of time before we start getting legal gambling in Minnesota, and then you're going to get ads for all the sports books around here. So I don't want the glorification of it. I liked it more when it was underground. I think that when it's kind of the thing, you go, "Hey, I just
put a dime on the I'm gonna just get a nickel on the Lions for tonight's game." A little quieter. I wanted to go to a quiet guy. You
lean over to the guy next to you on the bar. You're both sipping on a beer. You go, "Hey man, if he makes this shot, I'm going to win $1,500.
I win $1,500. At my bookie's a guy named the Wheeze, and he's down there on the corner. I'm going to go chat with him.
I don't need the bookies. I'm good with the apps.
He's wearing a trench coat down sitting. He's got a green visor, a see-through visor that you can see. Yes.
It's just starting to feel, right, a bit exploitative in the way that it's advertised.
I agree with you. And then they always say, and remember to gamble responsibly. Yeah, okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah. Let me thumb through these millions that I've won today. Yeah, and remember, hey guys, gamble responsibly.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me just you want a cool hundo for that little pick you made with $5? Here you go, pal. Gamble responsibly.
One more thing.
Yeah.
I'm with you on gambling. That's a great point. Glad you made it. You beat me too. That was really good. I want us to not talk about, like we talked this year about all the different platforms you could find the NFL on this year. Hey, what about those Christmas games on Netflix? What about the Black Friday games on Amazon? How about the Friday night opener in Brazil? I want the NFL to be less obvious in their money grabs. Like maybe be like, actually, if you're going to talk about player safety being a really important thing, don't go play on some horseshit field in Brazil, and don't play on Christmas Day when Christmas is on a Wednesday.
I think that second part of that is my answer. I want to hear less about player safety. I don't care. I'm going to be completely honest with you. High school and below, I care. Those are kids. They're playing a game. We should do the best we can to protect them.
100%.
These are professionals.
They've signed contracts.
These are professionals who, this is not the 1970s. We are not hiding the effects of this game from anybody anymore. Everybody who's playing this game has grown up in a world where we know that the NFL was covering up head injuries for decades, right? We know it. These are not the guys from 20 years ago who were just learning about this while they're playing football, right? And we started to see a small rash of retirements from some big game guys who decided it wasn't enough for them anymore, right? Like Patrick Willis saw that and fucked off and said, I'm done, right? Glenn Coffey saw that. No, that's a throwback name. Glenn Coffey saw that and said, I'm done. I'm not playing with the head injuries anymore, right? It's that those are guys that left because they learned this information. But that was 2008. This is 2025. These are kids who were born, grew up, began playing in a world where we knew, and they played anyway, and they continued to play, and they became adults and they played, and they've taken money and played. We don't need to protect them. They can protect each other.
And they're right? Grown-ass men, right? Like, you want to just say, like, they're grown-ass men who can make their own decisions.
They can, the NFLPA, the players can look around and say, hey, unwritten rules, this is what we're not going to do. All right. We're going to do our best to protect each other. All right. But if something happens, that's the game, right? Sometimes you get put in positions that you don't want to be in. I remember seeing Chris Jones getting a neck massage in the Super Bowl, trying to stop the tush push, a play that everybody wants to ban, but nobody minds when they score. The Eagles score a touchdown in the Super Bowl to go up 3 scores, right? And Chris Jones getting a massage after that because his neck got wrenched. But we're not talking about player safety with the tush push because it works, because it's effective, because it's fun to watch, right?
I don't know if it's fun to watch, but I don't know if it's fun to watch, but it works. It's definitely effective.
For one play, you have one play to stop the unstoppable. There's one team that can run it and is unstoppable. That's fun. That's cool. Don't ban that because one team can do it. If it were unstoppable, everybody would be doing it, and not everybody is.
That's fair.
It's only them, they're the best at it, and everybody wants to ban it. Stop with this mentality. Just because something works doesn't mean it should be banned or doesn't mean it's unfair. Sometimes a team carves out an advantage for themselves because they're just better than you. They're better than you at one aspect of the game, and they're going to use that aspect of the game. And it's the same thing with player safety. Sometimes the game is just the game. Let it be the game. I'm so tired of pretending like we care about player safety when so clearly we do not, right? Damar Hamlin almost dies on the field, and it's a complete aberration that the game stops. How many of us expected that game just to pick up?
I did.
Because that's what they
absolutely did.
A guy leaves half his leg laying on the field. They pile it on top of him, tell him to hold it as they wheel him into an ambulance, and they pick up the game the next 5 minutes. That's how that's football.
And the thing I didn't understand about I whined about that on this podcast because I hated the idea that Ryan Clark got to lecture me about how dare you want to continue the football game. It's like, fuck off. You always continue the football game. You're the guy on TV every week telling me how important this shit is. You're the guy who tells me there's nothing more important than football.
How many CTE death certificates did Ryan Clark himself sign? Right?
Yeah.
This is a guy who played with reckless abandon, who took heads off. I don't want to hear it out of him. I like Ryan Clark. I agree with a lot of the things that Ryan Clark says about the game. But on player safety, I don't like hearing it from former players because I watched Ray Lewis kill a man on the field every week. I watched Dallas Clark die at John Lynch's hands. All right.
And Vontaze Burfict we see what Antonio Brown looks like based on what Vontaze Burfict did.
And we all watched it. We know exactly when Antonio Brown went off the rails. It was that hit. And less talked about is the hit that Adam Green took from Hines Ward in that rivalry. And the year after Vontaze Burfict, when Juju Smith-Schuster did it back to Vontaze Burfict. This game is a game of hits. It is a game of momentum and violence and speed. Guys are going to run into each other. They are huge, muscular destruction makers of men.
So we should stop talking about safety is what you're saying.
Yes.
We've talked about it today. Next year, let's not talk about it.
Yes. I don't care. And I'm going to call the league out every time they do because I don't care. You don't care. Everyone watching this game doesn't care about player safety.
And during the game, the players don't care.
Correct.
You saw that hit Trevor Lawrence took.
Yes. I care that they get up and that they're okay and that they're going to be able to play again.
I want them to live, and I want them to be functional human beings, 100%.
I cheer for them to do that, but you are choosing to play this game at a very high level. You have honed your bodies to take these hits.
Correct.
If you can't do that, get off the field.
Nobody is holding their families hostage for them to play. This is not Gladiator. This is none of those types of things, right? You are free will here, at least for another few months. We think you have free will in this country.
You are very well compensated for your choice to play this game.
Correct. The world needs ditch diggers. If you don't want to do that, there's going to be job openings.
We always need more insurance agents.
Yep. The FAA is going to be hiring pretty soon too. Word is, and doesn't even sound like you even need qualifications to work there. That's the thing. Could be a good job. Those are good, Ryan. I like that list. That was a good one. That's a good one to start. We did make a rule that we couldn't say Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
We can't, Taylor Swift not to be mentioned.
Yeah. No, we
going forward.
That's all. I feel like that's always like,
yeah.
All the podcasts like us, like the average shows doing their little talky talk into the mics. All they want to do is bitch about Taylor Swift and how much time she gets. I don't care.
I don't get, show Taylor Swift every 5 seconds if you want. I don't give a fuck. Doesn't matter to me at all. She's a big star.
She's a billionaire and she helps grow the game. What do I give a shit?
She's a big star. People like looking at her. Who cares? I like looking at Rihanna. If Rihanna came to games and we wanted to put Rihanna on camera every 5 minutes, I'd watch.
Yeah. If she were dating Jalen Hurts, yeah, I'd watch. I'd see it.
If Rihanna was dating JJ McCarthy and she came to every Vikings game, I would literally watch every Vikings game, start to finish.
Yeah. On the opportunity that I might see her.
Yep. On just the off chance that we'll get some shots and she might be wearing something semi-provocative. I'm not even saying anything. Anyway.
This took a turn. Anyway.
This did. I'm sorry. Also, by the way, if Red Zone does add commercials next year, because it sounds like Scott Hansen's leaving Red Zone and it looks like they want to go to ads, fuck that. Like, honest to God, the NFL, you are so scummy if you do that. It's like, man, it's a good thing, boy, but if we can make $5 more, let's make $5 more. It's like, God damn, guys. Honestly. Like, you have this great thing that people like, and they pay for it on a monthly package for the season.
I absolutely pay for it because I don't want the ads. That is why I get Red Zone, because I don't want the ads.
Yes, because I pay for that. I want 6 hours of no commercials. I pay for that.
And if
don't
you're not,
take that from me.
If you are not making what you need to be making to keep the thing running without ads, tell me how much I need to pay. Tell me, I'll pay it. I will give you an extra $5 a month if you want. I don't care. I
refuse to believe that they're sitting there in poverty because they're running Red Zone for no commercials. Give me a goddamn break.
I agree with you. I'm just saying. Why
can't they why can't they treat it like soccer and have like a little crawl or something above it and say like, oh, this hour of NFL Red Zone is brought to you by these guys? Why not just do that? It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
If they run ads, I'm going to be really upset. All right. Good job today, Ryan.
Thanks, man.
We'll have more burning questions as we get into free agency, too. And I've got even more burning questions for you next week if we get into it, because we didn't even talk Kirk Cousins. We didn't even talk Vikings or anything. We got so much. Free agency. We got so much to talk about. So buckle up. The next couple months will be fun here on the pod. Enjoy. That'll do it for us this time around. Again, you can like, subscribe, leave a comment, go find the podcast anywhere that you get your podcast. We would appreciate it if you did that. And also tell a friend. Ryno joins us often. Allison joins us often. Zach, we'll get a whole bunch of people in here soon enough, and it will be great. So till next time, for Ryan, this is Tim saying keep your head up, and we'll see you.